So you want to get into a top college, but you aren't sure what extracurriculars to take up. Well, today I'm going to be going over the types of extracurriculars that these top colleges do not want to see, but also the extracurriculars that top colleges are looking for in applications. But why take my word for it? I've worked as a college consultant for the past 5 years, and I've coached over 100 students to acceptances at all the top schools, from Stanford to Harvard and beyond. So if you're aiming for one of those top schools, you're going to want to watch to the end. First things first, why are extracurriculars so important? When you're applying to top colleges like Stanford, Harvard, and MIT, every other student applying is really smart, takes all the honors and AP classes that they can, and has insane GPAs, SAT, and ACT scores. But these colleges don't have space to accept every single smart student. If colleges based their decisions on just academics, it would be impossible to find students that are unique and stand out above the rest. These schools are looking for the best of the best, and academics alone is not a good indicator of that. You could have a perfect GPA but do nothing but scroll on TikTok outside of class. Or you could have a perfect SAT score but be a terrible person. These schools want more than just people who are book smart. They want students who they think will go on to change the world. And since everyone who applies to these schools is already academically cracked, they need to look elsewhere to decide whom to accept. That's why colleges place so much emphasis on extracurriculars, to see what you, when given the freedom to do whatever you want, do on your own time. They want to see someone who's more than just a one-trick pony that studies all day. They want to see what you're passionate about and what separates you from other applicants, which will help them to decide whether they should choose to accept you. Through your extracurriculars, you can showcase your skills, characteristics, and passions. Aside from your GPA and test scores that only display your academic prowess in numerical form, extracurriculars give you a chance to showcase who you truly are. So now that you know why extracurriculars are so important, here's the first type of extracurricular activity that colleges do not want to see. Extracurriculars that are super generic. Think clubs like NHS or Key Club. These are the types of activities that you don't have much of a contribution in, and you may have just joined to have it appear in your application. But if I'm being honest, these activities don't really do anything for you. If you're a member of a large club and don't have any kind of leadership roles or meaningful impact, it kind of labels you as someone who doesn't take initiative to make a meaningful impact. And in a lot of cases, clubs like these are really just meaningless fluff that add nothing to your application. If you take time out of your own day just to join a club where you don't really do anything, that kind of paints you in a negative light, since you could have used that time and energy in another activity where you are actually doing something. Students exhibiting qualities like leadership and initiative are exactly the types of students that these top colleges are looking for. Beyond just educating you, they want to see big accomplishments from you associated with their name. For instance, take a look at the accomplishments of Stanford alumni. Co-founders of big tech companies like Google, Netflix, and even YouTube are recognized as former Stanford students. These colleges are looking to admit the next CEOs of big companies, so they're looking for these specific qualities, and extracurriculars are a great place to showcase them. Of course, these colleges aren't expecting every single student to go on to become a billionaire, but they do want to admit students who they see as having the potential to become future leaders, which means being intentional with where and how you spend your time and energy right now. So instead of joining these generic clubs where you have no leadership roles or impact, you can join another club where you would be able to have a more direct role. If you don't see any clubs that fit that standard at your school, you could try and start a new club on your own, one that is a great way to show your own initiative. If you do find yourself in these clubs already, you could also try to lead a new project within that club. This would not only show your leadership qualities, but also allow you to make a bigger impact. For me, I was also in NHS in high school, but in order to actually have some impact, I helped lead a project to have NHS students tutor underclassmen, which was much more impactful than just being a member of that club. The second type of extracurriculars that colleges don't want to see are recreational activities with low dedication. I'm not saying that you can't join clubs that align with your hobbies outside of school, like video games or films. You definitely can, but if your application is filled with just those types of clubs where there isn't much responsibility and is just for fun, it's kind of a red flag. When all you do is just join casual clubs like movie club or chess club without really any achievements in competitions or, again, leadership roles, it doesn't do much for you in the eyes of admissions. If in your free time you're always really easygoing, it shows that you aren't looking to make an impact. If you do want to join clubs you enjoy, take these clubs seriously and try to achieve something with it. For instance, if you like video games and you join your school's esports team, don't just treat it lightly. Commit to it, practice often, and try to win tournaments. Doing so would show your dedication and accomplishments. Yes, things like anime club and music club can show what you're interested in, but admissions officers want to see that you are a dedicated and capable individual, and these hobby clubs are often unable to do so. I'm not saying that it's out of the question, but it will take an active effort on your part to make these kind of activities really shine. So what if you are unable to find any activity that fits that mold? Well, there's one thing that every student can do. Get a job. No, I'm not joking. Getting a job increases your chances of getting into top colleges by an insane margin. I read a statistic the other day that out of 20,000 applicants who applied to Duke one year, only 7% of them had jobs. And out of this tiny proportion that had jobs, over 90% actually got accepted. Of course, there's the argument of correlation versus causation, but having a job, no matter what kind, does showcase several qualities that college admissions do want to see, especially when they take a majority of your free time. Having a job shows that you can handle multiple responsibilities, are dedicated, and have the ability to manage your time wisely. You don't only have the responsibility of going to school and managing your grades, sports, and clubs, but on top of that, you're dedicated to working a job. Especially nowadays when the competition for getting into a top college leads to students starting a new organization, doing internships, and getting into research, one way to show your uniqueness is to go back to the basics and get a job. Again, at top colleges, a tiny proportion of applicants had jobs, so stand out by getting one. And then you have to make sure that you actually commit to it and don't just work for short periods of time, because the third type of extracurriculars that top colleges do not want to see are short-lived ones with low commitment. If you bounce from job to job or club to club, it shows that you're unsure of what you want to do and don't really have much dedication. If you join student government for just 1 year, it looks to admissions officers like you're unable to commit and probably just join to pad your application with more activities. So instead of joining every single activity that your school offers, not really getting deeply involved with any of them, commit to fewer extracurriculars that are more long-term, will demonstrate much more in the admission scheme. For example, activities that you do regularly, like volunteering at a local organization, weekly mentoring, or like I said previously, having a job, shows colleges your capability to commit to things. Colleges look at your performance in high school as an indicator of how you will tackle college. If you're uncommitted to things now, bouncing from club to club, colleges may see this as an indicator that you might just waste their resources and time because you constantly change from one commitment to another. An extracurricular that I did that many people ask me about is social media and content creation. And to that, I say it kind of depends on the situation. What major you are applying to is important to consider, as well as what you're trying to do with your content, your message, or your purpose. If you run an account and post videos with no real purpose or contribution, admissions officers will have a hard time trying to understand what that extracurricular adds to your application. Without that intended purpose, you aren't really able to showcase any valuable impact or skills through your content. So if you have a YouTube channel with a few hundred subscribers where you post gaming videos, what are colleges supposed to take away from your content? So instead of posting super general content without any real motive, try to instead understand your purpose and post accordingly. Moreover, recognize what major you want to pursue in college. If you want to be a history major, you can create YouTube videos going over historical documents or reenacting historical events. If you want to be some sort of STEM major, you could create TikToks going over topics you learned in the past about that. If you want to be a psychology major, you could create an Instagram page to raise awareness about mental health, things like that. And one big thing to consider with having content creation as an activity is to back up everything with numbers, followers, views, stuff like that. You don't have to be the next Mr. Beast with millions of subscribers, but if you stay committed for long periods of time to develop your content's direction, editing, and overall presentation, it will eventually gain some sort of attention. And having good metrics in the form of followers and views is a good way to directly and clearly show the impact of your content creation and that activity. But then again, from my experience, this is much easier said than done. After years of posting, I'm at just over 6,000 subscribers, which is another reason to subscribe if you haven't already. It'll definitely take time, years maybe. But in the end, it'll be incredibly worth it because you will have put in the time already that nobody else will be able to imitate. And that will definitely help you separate you from the rest and make you stand out in the admissions process. Becoming someone that other people aren't able to copy because you have already put in so much time and effort. That is your path to your dream school. So if you're looking to get into content creation as an extracurricular activity or even just as a hobby, start now if you haven't already. And for the entirety of your application and extracurriculars, you're going to want to have a core central theme. This is the personality of your application that all of your essays and extracurriculars are going to follow. Say you want to major in something with chemistry. Both the things you do in school, classes you take, clubs you join, and the things you do outside of school should both be related to chemistry. Say you take AP Chemistry, join the chemistry club at your school, and do activities outside of school like some chem-related internship. Having all your activities related to one another strengthens your application as a whole. Without a core central theme in your application, with you taking extracurriculars and classes that are totally unrelated, your application might seem a little too scattered, and admissions officers may find it difficult to understand your passions and who you really are. So while having several commitments may seem great, having activities that are totally unrelated to your core theme may actually harm your application. It might show that you're unsure of your goals or inconsistent with your identity. Instead of padding your application with a bunch of random extracurriculars, identify what you want your core theme to be and choose your journey based on that. So if you want to put your best foot forward in the admissions process, make meaningful impact in your extracurricular activities. Ensure that you're committed long-term to your activities and do activities that follow a core theme.